Salmond phone-in. Call 0345 6060 973. Leading Britain's conversation. The Alex Salmond phone-in with Ian Dale at Drive on LBC.
It's Wednesday, it's just gone 4 o'clock, and this is the Alex Salmond phone-in on LBC. The junior doctors are on strike again, and their dispute was ignored at Prime Minister's questions yet again. Are all the docs going to have to move to Scotland? And will Ian Dale have to move to Scotland to have a big shop on a Sunday? Prime Minister's You can call in anything you like, within reason, of course. Phone 0345 6060 973 or text 84850 or tweet at LBC or email at alec@lbc.co.uk. This is the Alex Salmond phone-in with Ian Dale. LBC, leading Britain.
When you said outed Her Majesty... Yeah, it is an amazing story, which we're going to be talking about, I think, after 6, but you never know, we may get a question on that in this hour. You can, of course, watch us at lbc.co.uk. HD, wrinkles...
How loud would you get? Unethical as well, don't you think?
Trading law. The employment Scotland gets supplementary payments for working a Sunday. And the argument that came forward from the STUC and these workers was that these payments would be at risk in Scotland and in England. And we didn't get a to make pretty poor paid workers poorer. That's why we're voting this afternoon.
Paul?
I don't buy it. And basically, it's about ethics. You should not be having a vote in this one. Hunting. No, let me finish. You're basically doing this because on this programme, you're provocateur, you put people with a stick. You should not ethically be having a vote on this or fox hunting or anything else.
This programme, Paul. So
well, I don't
you seem to be
against Sunday trading.
Well, I don't know. I mean, there's plenty of people from England out demonstrating. So but the people who represented the shop workers argued they might lose these valuable payments to low-paid workers. Now, we asked the big stores what would happen, and we got from Asda, this is what Asda said to us. They said they wouldn't lose their premium payments.
Well,
That's not... Well, that's protection is to
Well,
get us to
apparently,
change their mind.
according to Torquil Crichton from the Daily Record, he says that Stuart Hosey, who was on this programme about half an hour ago, was offered a Privy Councillorship by the government in exchange for letting some... True?
Hosey is the leadership offered by the government. And incidentally, Paul, if Stuart had taken this blandishment, if it's true, Paul would have been the first person on from Paisley folk in Scotland,
But
Paul.
why should it affect them? If they've negotiated these agreements, why should it affect them?
They
It's a
argue
pretty
that-
flimsy excuse
No,
for
it's
doing
not.
what you're doing.
It's the people who negotiated the agreements who put forward that argument. They believe that's a pretty strong argument. They also produced a council's opinion, a legal opinion, which said that the government's protection wasn't going to be operative, wouldn't protect the workers in that situation. Now, look, if the government wants to
not your
properly
argument to
protect the
make,
workers,
Alex.
they should do it. It is our argument to make, because employment protection is reserved to Westminster. About.
You mentioned Asda a moment ago. Isn't this just effectively payback for the fact that the six big supermarkets in the referendum campaign, they campaigned in favour of Better Together, and they said prices would go up if Scotland left the UK?
It's only is defunct as well. But I think it's rather a good argument from us if we're not going to take blandishment, not to make life easy for the government.
Well, that
The
may be
opposition
so, but also normal people looking at this, they think, well, they have Sunday trading in Scotland, and the SNP go to
relied upon to protect workers' rights and the payments that are being made for
Well, you
working on
didn't
Sunday.
feel the need to do that when you allowed big shops to open when they liked.
Agreements were negotiated, and the argument
and be broken.
But the people who negotiate
Because you're playing politics. Simple as that.
well, there's plenty of people put forward the argument that the Sunday trading would just displace jobs. But the argument that we're putting forward is we want to defend the rights of low-paid workers. And if the government had come forward with cast-iron guarantees on that, then we
On fox hunting, you've now decided to vote on Sunday trading, which has no effect on Scotland whatsoever, whatever you say. Is there anything that you wouldn't vote on?
There are quite a few English issues we wouldn't vote on, but of course the present government has
Name
put
one.
forward evil legislation, which is carving us out of votes which
wouldn't
we
you
think
vote on?
have an impact. If we had an issue which didn't have a knock-on effect in Scotland,
Which
it didn't,
this
for
doesn't.
example, Ian, I've explained it a number of times, and it's reasonable to say that the people who represent these workers evidence they brought these things.
Legal opinions are to a penny, of
Yeah, well,
course. I'm sure
but
that Asda or whoever
okay.
could provide a legal opinion. And give
the work at the
maybe
for their submission, and what we got told is
well, exactly. And if they don't pay, then the workers are going to be no worse off,
but
are
many
they?
other companies do, Ian. Many other companies are less, in this case, skinflint than Asda
Okay.
is. And I know it's foremost in your mind.
Ian, go ahead.
Afternoon, afternoon, Ian. So, like, Alec,
No.
again, me. to try and fight to afford it.
Well, it's been higher than the UK. Argue, as the UK government did in the referendum campaign, that somehow Scotland can't afford to be independent, or up a gum tree, when Ian rightly cites the figure.
Goes to 9.7. You've got double the level of deficit in
That
Scotland.
is 90 billion. Right, when North Sea revenues are high, the Scottish deficit is lower, or Scotland is in surplus. When North Sea revenues are lower, the Scottish deficit is higher. But let's take the last 10 years, when oil's been high and oil's been low. The years up to 2014. The Scottish deficit is minus 3.4, the UK deficit minus 3.5. That's over
but we're
a 10.
talking at least that the deficit in that should concern you.
Yeah, and also know that people who put usually find themselves in some trouble. A few years' time, even if you assume that oil doesn't recover, prices don't recover, revenues don't recover, in 2020, according to forecasts, Scottish deficit would be 4.6%. Now that's less than the UK deficit was at the time of the independence referendum.
What's
the long-term price of oil? But when it moves,
so you think it could go back up to $100?
Oh yes, of course it could.
Within
an oil price cycle.
Okay.
I've seen lots of times when oil price. I mean, I was an oil economist, Ian, when oil prices went to single figures. 30 years, and every single year, then the average tax raised from people in Scotland has been greater than the average tax raised from people in the UK, including in Swansea.
A Europhile.
Yes.
Alex.
Unlike the Majesty of the Queen, according to the Sun.
Do you think that Mr. Longworth was a victim of the Downing Street Stasi? And actually, the second one we've just linked to.
First question. I think when you represent a representative organisation, in this case, I think members, because it's very difficult to divorce your personal opinion when you're part of the job, but I think they probably will.
Well,
yeah, because that's what the Downing Street heavies do. If they weren't being heavy, they wouldn't be doing their job. So I think the Downing Street probably was on the phone. I think that's probably been established. Heavies were decided to stay neutral, to state his personal opinion.
I mean,
resign at the end of the day.
Well, he did. I don't think he had
the
much
only
choice, did he?
Well, the only question is, did he resign because the guns were being pointed at him, or did he resign because he thought on balance? But I don't think he should have stated his personal view, given he was representing an organisation.
What about Mark Carney's evidence to the Treasury Select Committee yesterday? Because he made some comments which have been interpreted as being very pro-EU membership.
Well, it's quite interesting. You see, I didn't complain about Mark Carney during the Scottish referendum, although many people...
And he did the same now,
well,
didn't he?
and many people interpreted, because I didn't believe that was the case. I didn't think he overstepped the mark. Unlike, for example, Sir Nicholas Macpherson of Her Majesty's Treasury, who not just overstepped the mark, he ran through the mark. And I thought, again, I watched Carney's evidence in front of the committee, and like now, Stan in Swansea took us on to the Queen, which I thought was I don't think the Queen advocates for Brexit, Stan, and I don't think she would. Private conversation have said a few remarks critical of the European Brexit. Now, if it had been a story that Nick Clegg had been Prince Philip used either the...
And do you think that's a mistake? I mean, because it keeps the story going, doesn't it?
Oh, no, it's great fun, isn't it? I mean,
Well,
come
it
on.
may be great fun, but as a strategic tactic, I suspect it might backfire.
I have to
on them.
confess, I had lunch this very day with the editor of the Sun newspaper, and I actually thought he was going to be dragged off to the tower. So I even detected he was engagement.
Oh,
And
right,
now
okay.
I've got the pleasure of congratulating them on
But you didn't
air.
get an invite?
I didn't get an invite. And if I had, I would have gone, incidentally, because I thought it was the most,
Michael Gove
most
did.
extraordinary thing. He did, yes. I mean, Michael Gove is an interesting person with regard to many of these stories, I understand.
Indeed. If you'd like to watch us instead of just listening, you can do so via the LBC website at lbc.co.uk.
Who do you think will win, Ian?
Winning what?
Well, win the ipso case between the Palace and the Sun.
Oh, it'll be some sort of fudge.
Well,
It usually is in these cases.
I'm
isn't it?
told that they've gone on the basis of accuracy. Now, I'm not certain that there is a general expectation that every single thing that appears in the Sun newspaper is absolutely accurate.
Did you tell the editor of the Sun that?
Absolutely.
He agreed with you, did he?
I cannot tell.
He's a
you're-
fellow West Ham supporter. He's a great man.
You're not allowed to divulge private conversations with the editor of the Sun.
No, indeed. Right, let's
We're off
move
to
on.
Newcastle. Andy, you're on. On you go.
Hi there. Which also omits any accountability or any redress, unlike in England. So tomorrow, I go to Goddard, along with many others, to ask for a fair
But Andy, the Scottish inquiry, I mean, obviously, terms of reference of the Scottish inquiry, what is it about these terms of reference that you
I'm
believe
bad on
excludes?
the religion.
How are you barred in religion? I don't understand it, Andy.
I met the Cabinet Secretary 2 weeks ago, She. Okay, you're a good friend of Keith Patrick O'Brien. How is it Catholic abuse isn't in the Scottish inquiry? Because it's not.
But how is that, Andy? What is it
Well,
within
Andy,
the
what they're
term?
telling me-
Well, what is it within the terms of reference that
Terms of
stops these
reference
issues
to the
being raised?
Back packet. In England, I went to meet Theresa May, the House of Commons. Was in Hollywood, going back several years, they would deliver letter after letter. You failed to deliver.
Well,
You felt that we are being humiliated.
I'll tell you what. I'm not in government.
Is there's no Catholic abuse. Every 10 survivors in Scotland, 9 are Catholics. That's the stats. That's what it's.
So you're.
Systems, Andy,
Yes,
which is relevant
yes.
to this.
But rape's rape of a child. No,
I absolutely agreed, but
so why are we not entitled to the same justice?
because it would be hugely surprising to me if a Catholic abuse, as you call it, or abuse in a Catholic institution was excluded from the Scottish inquiry. I don't think that can possibly be the case.
But
it might. Can't identify just now that these things are. I'll go away and
we'll
look.
come back to Andy next.
Obviously, circumstances unless you do, but in terms of you going to the inquiry down south, is that in your personal case or what?
That's in my case, and all the dozens who ask me to represent them because I don't take any waffle, right? So they come to me, hundreds come to me, so I'm taking a court tomorrow, and it's bigger in England. It's an international problem, but we're not getting parity.
And
Andy,
I saw a debate on the terms of reference to the Australian subject, no doubt. And I'm sure everybody listening to the programme hopes that you and your colleagues get the justice that is warranted. Our next caller. I'm concerned about the trends in Turkey, which I'm sure you're well aware of at the present moment, the taking over the newspapers, the breakdown of the peace of the Turkish government, and of your question. So I'm sympathetic to
future. We are going to be paying for it again and again and again.
Are your concerns, Helen, are you concerned about the nature of Turkey? 20,000 over a number of years. I mean, that's very small numbers.
What number would
comparison
you
of-
put on it?
Well, I've said before, and I'll say again here, I think the United Kingdom should volunteer to take our pro rata, that is to say, our economic share of the genuine asylum seekers who have arrived in Europe, and we should do it on that basis.
What would that
and,
be?
Well, that's whatever it is allocated as part of a share, and it should be done on a joint
But you
basis.
see,
what's going to happen to what are called the unaccompanied children, and we hear today at risk in camps in the Middle East, and these numbers. Because unless that is done, then you're looking at the next generation of dispossessed or oppressed children, which will come back. McKellen quite rightly says that things can be done short term that can come back to haunt you. What would be coming back to haunt us if we leave an oppressed tens, maybe hundreds of thousands of children across the Middle East?
Okay, let's
Our
find
next caller's Ralph in Hyams Park. Hyams Park.
I thought you needed a bit of help
yes,
on that
well,
one.
You saw me hesitate.
It's in North East
momentarily
London,
there.
near
I knew
Walthamstow.
that. I knew that, Ralph. On you go.
Hello there. It's near Chingford, actually. For quite an important reason.
Well, because the Lib Dems brought out a paper yesterday. They are proposing to legalise it.
Yeah. With and you could argue that is part of the treatment of condition. I'm hugely sympathetic to doing that, but in terms of a broad legalisation, you'd have a difficulty now in trying to differentiate between violence. So while you can quite easily say that certain types of cannabis are perhaps less harmful than tobacco or even less harmful than alcohol, there are other types of cannabis well available now which are clearly
And when you and I were at university, I guess it would have been a very different type. And did you dabble at all?
I didn't exhale.
But you did inhale.
You got the quote. I didn't exhale. I think there's lots of dabblers, including yourself here.
No. I've never dabbled at all.
In anything?
In anything.
I'm not talking cannabis here. I'm talking more.
I won't say that, but I didn't do drugs. Tim in Manchester says that on the day that George Martin has died, what's your favourite Beatles album?
Oh, Sgt. Pepper.
Claire in Luton says, do you feel sorry for Maria Sharapova? Have you seen?
Both is the answer. Yes, I'm sorry for her, and she was reckless. I mean, somebody in her team should have been keeping a check on such at the press conference. Well, firstly, obviously, they have to be punished. But there was nobody directly injured, as there have been in other armed robberies. But you can argue there could have been, but there wasn't. Also, I suspect there is a sneaking sympathy because of age of the folk concerned. Secondly, kind of like the Italian job, and also I suspect.
Vaguely sentimental way.
Well, you asked me why are people sentimental about it, and I'm trying to explain it. Now, if you've got a heart and a soul, you understand these things. Clearly, obviously,
No, I don't. Possible.
But most people somewhere will have a bit of sentiment for it. And the reason why there not be any heists because physical assets are being replaced by electronic wizardry.
Lots of people have been hurt with what these people stole.
No, I know, but that's why.
'Went home from hospital too early after giving birth. 0345 6060.
34 years in prison for their roles in the Hatton Garden jewellery heist last Easter. It's thought to have been Britain's biggest ever burglary. A sixth man, Hugh Doyle, has been given a suspended sentence. He spoke to LBC's chief correspondent Tom Swarbrick outside court.
Just relieved. It's nearly over.
Would you say sorry to those whom you have hurt for taking or being involved in?
I honestly didn't know what was going on. So, obviously there's lots of victims in this crime and I really do feel for them. And it's terrible that people's lives are getting destroyed.